So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and great privilege to invite to the podium His Excellency Ambassador Macharia Kamau.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. You're very kind, and thank you for that very warm introduction. I'm most grateful for that. First of all, let me begin by apologizing to the kids. I'm not sure I have a special message for you young people, especially the very young. And having worked for UNICEF for many, many years, I'm always very conscious that, young kids also need to have their message for them. But I hope that you'll get the message vicariously through your parents, and that you'll understand that what I have to say is also for you. To those of you who've invited me here, the organizers of this event, thank you very much. It gives me great pleasure to be here. As a Kenyan who spent many, many years in the diaspora, I cannot tell you what a pleasure it is for me to be able to speak to the diaspora. When I was in the so-called diaspora, I never imagined I would be doing what I do now. I never even went to visit Kenya embassies or Kenya missions. I just had a thing that I was out there and I felt very much alone doing what I did. I came to the United States in 1978 for college, and I was here for 6 years when I did my undergrad, then went to graduate school. But I always had this calling about going back to Kenya, and which is what I did. And I never regretted it, in spite of the fact that when I got back home, there were no jobs, and I had to go and set up my own business. And I used to run a small little restaurant called Taisiri, which was just next to Nairobi Cinema, for those of you who are old enough to remember. And, that's how I went home, with my big fat degrees, feeling very proud and very happy to be back home. But as things would have it, I ended up joining the United Nations and working. I had 9 missions under my belt in 9 different countries around the world, in 4 continents. And I've had the pleasure to work, as you heard, with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And then when I decided to throw in the towel and go back home for good, I got an opportunity when I was invited by the government to take up the challenge of leading Kenya's charge on issues of climate change and the environment, which is where I got to meet the great Professor Wangari Maathai. And I can tell you, she was a very special lady. And I'm not saying this because of her passing. I'm saying this because I said it even then. And I remember we worked very, very hard to try to see to it that even as she worked with the world, that she also was able to be an ambassador of Kenya, which is what she most passionately wanted to be, was to be a champion of us, the Kenyan people, our ecology, our geography, our country, our future, our very lives. And I know that wherever she is very conscious of the fact that, like that little hummingbird, she did the right thing and she did all she could. And she really was a very special lady in that regard. I wanted to, when I came here, I was just asking a few minutes ago, what should I say? Because, what does one say to a diaspora? What is it that people really need to hear about what's going on and what's happening to us in our own country? All I can tell you is that if you've been in Kenya in the last 5 years, it has been one of the most exhilarating trips, one of the most exhilarating life journeys you can imagine. Anybody who is a conscious, thinking, experiencing being will tell you that being a Kenyan right now is a very proud moment. And we need to understand this because sometimes we lose perspective when we're in the diaspora. I know I did. I was so bitter and so angry about what was going on in my country in the 80s and the 90s that I felt like I almost could not find the courage to say something good and hopeful about my own country and about my own people. But we should understand that we need the perspective to understand that we are a people, like any other people, challenged by history, challenged by politics, challenged by our economy, challenged by our very being. And we have to overcome all these things so that we can realize our full potential as a country and as a people. Overcoming this and getting the right perspective and seeing what Kenya has been able to do is wonderful, I tell you. We have, as you know, are now in a position where we are able to finance 98% of our recurrent budget. Now you may say, well, what does that mean? We went from a less than $1 billion budget, government budget. Last year's budget passed 1 trillion Kenya shilling budget last year. Now, again, what does that mean? Well, that means that we're able to do the bulk of our work, our own heavy lifting, when it comes to health, when it comes to education, when it comes to our infrastructure, when it comes to putting food on people's table. This recent crisis that you heard about, and I speak to people in the diaspora, and of course, they see it from a certain perspective, was the first time that we had a drought. And droughts are acts of nature. And for the first time, Kenya, and I might add Ethiopia, because they've also gone through a huge transformation in the last 10 years, were both able to provide the response to save their people. Everything that came from abroad, and we got a lot of help from abroad, was an add-on. Kenya was able to put on the table 10 billion Kenya shillings at the moment that that drought was announced to have taken place. Now, when could that have happened before? Instead, we'd have seen dying Kenyans. This time, no one died. This time, we were able to respond to our own people for our own needs. Our dignity was left intact, and our pride was restored. And I'm saying this because as we move forward, we must understand that if we can't get our own house in order, we should not expect that anybody out there is going to come and put it in order for us. That doesn't happen in your homes, and it's not going to happen in your country, because that's just how life is. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things, and somebody needs to wave at me when it's 5 minutes and I should shut up, because I can go on. And I want to talk about 4 things. The first is the issue of governance. Why have we been challenged? In the 60s and the 70s, there were no Kenyans in the diaspora. Very, very few. Most Kenyans wanted to go home. In the 80s and 90s, many Kenyans left and never went back. Why? If Kenya was a booming, thriving, embracing economy and society, most of you would be home today. Because that's just how life is. But in the 80s and 90s, there were no opportunities. And the fundamental reason wasn't because we were a poor country. The fundamental reason was because of poor governance. I want to talk about governance for a minute. Then I'm going to talk about the economy. Then I'm going to talk about peace and security. You know what's been happening lately. Then I'm going to talk about environment and climate change. And all this, hopefully, in 15 minutes. So first of all, governance. Listen, we need to get our institutions up and running. We have done a remarkably good job in the shortest time. I sometimes sound very excited, but it isn't hyperbole. I mean what I say, and I'm saying what I mean. Kenya has put in place the most transformative governance exercise of any country in history in a period of less than 24 months. It's a remarkable fact. Check your history. They're historians. I had people being called professor around here. We had a constitution. First of all, we went through what we went through in 2007. Everybody acts like it was the end of the world. It was a nasty experience. But let's put it in perspective. This is a country that has for 47 years, or 46 years at the time, had not had a similar convulsion. Now, how many of you know what's happened in the rest of the world, including in these United States of America, in the last 40 years? 48 years. How many of you know what's happened? What convulsions has this country gone through? The civil rights movement. What happened? Kent State. People got shot. Watts. LA. You can have many, many examples of moments when this nation was shaken by its own transformation. Go to England. You know what happened recently? The so-called Tottenham Revolution, when 8 cities of theirs went up in flames because some young people felt that the time had come to get a point across to the country. What's happened in Asia, in India, in China in the last 48 years? So why is it that when we in Kenya had a catastrophe of our own, and it was a social catastrophe, some of us want to write off the country, and some of us want to condemn it? We had 3 bad weeks when everything went wrong. And you know what we've done because of it? We've risen. We've risen. We've come together in ways in which we could never have imagined we could do. We have in the process put together one of the most radical, the most transformative, the most aspirational constitutions on earth. And I'm challenging all of you to read it. Those of you who deal with the disabled, those of you who deal with the poor, those of you who deal with religion, those of you who deal with the economy, those of you who deal with finance, all these issues are taken care of, spelt out. Because we don't want to leave anything to chance anymore. Because we realize that it's in those gaps where we leave things to chance that everything could be lost. There are 7 particular chapters I want you to remember, my dear adults. Because the kids, I'm not sure, are going to remember this. Okay? Chapter 1. The very first chapter deals with sovereignty of the people. The supremacy, it says, of us. That constitution, that country, that republic is about us. It's not about an executive. It's not about some big honcho, Mr. Presidento. No, it's about us. It is about us reclaiming our supremacy in the context of the governance of our nation. It's important. The second chapter I want to remind you to refer to is chapter 3. This is the chapter that speaks about your entitlements, our entitlements as citizens. That's where your dual citizenship kicks in. And you need to read that so that you understand what is your entitlement, what is your children's entitlement. I was just speaking to the good pastor, reverend, I suppose, over here. And he was asking me, and we were discussing about Kenya, and I said, are we talking about Americans of Kenyan origin, or are we talking about Kenyans in America? Because you all need to fix this in your heads, because it's important. Personally, I think if you're in America, and you're in America, and you're an American citizen, you're an American. It was a hot neighborhood where the governor lives. Buckhead. All right? He's made it. He's got a huge home, beautiful, palatial even. If he cashed out, he would barely be able to buy a place in Muthaiga. Now what does that tell you? That if you're planning to come home, you better get your act together and you better hurry up. That country is moving. The third chapter I want to talk to you about is chapter 4, the Bill of Rights. It's an incredible chapter in our Constitution. Kenya has a Bill of Rights like none other. Like none other. Check it out. It's a 21st century Bill of Rights. Look at it, study it, understand your rights. Understand the rights of your people back home. I'll refer you then to chapter 7 on leadership and integrity. For the first time, we expect our leadership to have the ethics and the morality of true leaders. And we have a system to hold them accountable to that. That's clear. I'll take you to chapter 8 on the executive. No longer the only show in town. The presidency is no longer the only show in town. We have balance of institutions between the presidency, the judiciary, and the parliament. I'd like you to look at chapter 11 on devolution, remembering that there's 18 chapters in our constitution. Devolution. Those who are Kenyans in America, I met one the other day. I thought he was from Atlanta because he gave me a little card and he wants to be governor of Kiambu. Okay. Okay. If you think this is the Kiambu you left in 1989, you are in for a major surprise. Devolution. We have counties now, like you have states. We have governors now, like you have here. It's a whole different ball game. Then we have a chapter 12 on public finances. It's a very controversial chapter. We're talking about sharing, how we are going to share the national cake. The Constitution is leaving nothing to chance. These are the chapters that I think everyone in the diaspora truly has to have a grip on. Because if you understand these chapters, you'll understand the rest of the Constitution. And you'll understand what it is that the 21st century Kenyans are talking about. Because they're a very different mindset of Kenyans. Believe you me. Remember that this Constitution was voted for by 90% of the eligible voters in our country, and 80% of them voted for it. That is almost unmatched anywhere in the world. Almost. In fact, I'm almost 100% sure there is no precedent to that. Let's move to the economy. Our biggest challenge is poverty. But poverty is an outcome of certain things that are not going right. Poverty is not about the economy. Poverty is about failure in the economy. So let's sort out the economy. If there's one thing that this government has been trying to do, it is trying to put the engine of our economy in order. You've heard of Vision 2030? It's real. And again, I'm telling those Kenyans, in America to understand that this is the blueprint that is moving our economy and that is putting in place certain projects that are going to transform that economy in fundamental ways. When His Excellency the President was here just the other day at the opening of the General Assembly, he went to speak to investors about one project, a multi-billion, multi-program project that's going to be transforming the northern part of our country. It's called the LAPSET. The Lamu, Ethiopia, South Sudan corridor. Imagine for a minute the Mombasa, Nairobi, Kisumu corridor, and what it has done for our country, because everything that has happened in our country has revolved around this one corridor. Everything. Now imagine another corridor up further north. Imagine what that's going to bring. That hooks us up to Ethiopia, to South Sudan, and the plan, and it ain't a dream, it's a plan, is to hook us up all the way from Lamu to Douala, Cameroon. That means we're going to have a land corridor from East to West Africa. You know what that does? Ever heard of the Suez Canal? The Panama Canal? Well, it's not going to be by ship. It's going to be by land, train, and trucks. How many miles does that cut for goods going from Asia to Western Europe and North America? Get with the program, guys. This is real. Land in Lamu was going for, around Lamu and Isiolo, was going for 250,000 shillings for half an acre 5 years ago, when all this was still a dream. Now that it's a plan, and they're going to break ground in November for Lamu's port, land is going for 2 million shillings. Okay? That's 5 years. What kind of returns are those for those of you who like the stock market? Those are incredible returns on your investment. Get with the program. Because Kenya is moving. Let me move to peace and security. Because these are the pillars, right? Got to get the governance right. You have to get the economy right. But we have to sort out peace and security. Those of you who were hanging out in Nairobi in the 70s, anybody? Nobody's that old, right? Okay, one of you. It was a lady, I'm surprised she admits it. When a cop came up to you, he was carrying a baton. A little thing like this. Where? Lock up. Puts his back. There were no guns in sight in Nairobi. Today, every cop, every security person is fully armed and armed to the teeth. And that's not a good thing. That's a sign of the times. That's a sign of the times. We would rather have people unarmed. That's how it used to be. But because of the insecurity, primarily driven by small arms, primarily coming from? Okay. Kenya has been patient and tolerant. Patient and tolerant. We have hosted hundreds of thousands of Somalis in Kenya. We have even integrated them into our society. That's how patient we are. These are our brothers and they are our sisters. They are our fellow Africans. We have reached out to them. It's a godly thing to do for all of you who are religious. But you know, there is an element and a character in that society that is proven unpalatable. These are the ones who bring the arms, who bring contraband, and who arm our criminals, because we have our own criminals. That's where the cheap guns and the little pistols and the insecurity. Meanwhile, they're raiding the country, especially the terrorist elements in the southeastern part of Somalia, raiding into our country, killing our people, attacking our police posts, raiding our military. I'm sorry. There is no nation worth its name that can tolerate this year in, year out. Enough already. And then people say, well, you know what? You better be careful. You're going to get bombed. Did they not bomb us, even though we didn't occupy their country? Did they not bomb us, even though we received hundreds of thousands of people from there? Did these terrorist elements not bomb us? So what? You think if you stay home with your tail between your legs and sitting on your hands, that they're not going to bomb you? Really? That's not the way to think about your national security? That's not how to think about your national sovereignty? Your national sovereignty is non-negotiable. You don't negotiate with terrorists. That's not how you handle your security. So our boys have decided to go and do the heroic thing. And they are putting their lives on the line for us. And we are the ones who have to back them up. Because if we don't, and we get hit, and then you all say, oh, you see, government screwed up. What? Because we got hit? Because we've lost a few of our brave, strong, God-fearing kids in the line of battle? What nation out there does not fight for its freedoms and its rights? Those of you Americans surely understand what I'm talking about. So let's move on to environment and climate. That nation of ours is not going to be much of a nation if we destroy the environment. It's now clear. Climate change is real. And Kenya has to take its leadership among the world's nations and show that it means what it says when it says it wants to use our environment to drive our economy, to drive our society. And we're going to do it. The example of Wangari Maathai is there for us to emulate. It is the example that we have to live by. She has to be our guiding light. That's just how it's got to be. We rely, our people, your grandparents, your uncles, your cousins, on agriculture, on rain-fed agriculture. We need to put together, we need to heal our environment because it's our survival. Already we've made the commitment to begin to put in place the energy systems, the power plants, wind, geothermal. Kenya has become a world leader in both wind and geothermal. Read about it, Google it, and you will see. Kenya little Kenya is doing it like very few countries on earth. I know this for a fact. And there are a lot of doubting Thomases, a lot of non-believers in Kenya. But you know what? We're just going to have to show you. Those are the 4 areas I wanted to speak about. Because these are the things, these are the pillars that are going to make sure that what you send home as your diaspora investments in Kenya, that they find the proper governance environment to secure your investment, that they find the proper economic environment to create synergies for your investment, that they find the proper peace and security environment to ensure that you can come home and enjoy your investments, and to find the environment, whether it is trees, plants, animals, birds, whatever, that makes you feel and fall in love again with your environment, with your country, with your Kenya. God bless you all.
Give him another hand clap.